talking about vibe coding as the next way of building apps, even if you're not a trained developer. Today, we'll talk about what it actually takes and what the next steps are that you should take after you've taken some amazing courses on LinkedIn Learning. My name is Andreas Welsh. I'm a LinkedIn Learning instructor. I've just recently published my next course, Lovable 101 from Prompt to Product. And I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Scott Klein-Daniel, who's also a LinkedIn Learning instructor and has a course out on Lovable. Scott, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, I looked at the LinkedIn Learning library a couple of weeks ago as I was building my course and was looking for someone that also has a course out there. There are not too many people that have already published a course on Lovable, but I saw you already have one out there that's been there for a while, and I know you're very, very active in the AI and data science scene. I help business leaders figure out what do we do with AI, from strategy to roadmap to bringing people on board, upskilling. And so Lovable was a great way to show how can you build your first app. But maybe share a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So AI has been near and dear to my heart. I just passed my 40th anniversary. Yes, OLD. So I've always loved it. There is something that is truly fantastic about Gen AI that I think people are missing, which is the fact that Gen AI just breaks down so many barriers. There have been so many people who have been excluded from technology, including building models or building applications, because the interface was just too hard. And what really excites me is being able to instruct individuals and how to take advantage of this. So all the stuff that was sort of moored off by the select few is now available to everybody. That just makes me smile.
Yeah, and me as well, right? I've been giving a lot of trainings in upskilling programs to leaders, different organizations, multinational, smaller organizations. And I think once, at least for me as a trainer, once you see it, it clicks and you
Yes.
move beyond this stage of, hey, this is what you can do with it, go try it out. And then they try it out and they come back and say, hey, I have these other 3, 4, 5 ideas. What do you think? I tried working on this and it works really, really well. For me, that's the part that gets me excited, because learners start thinking about what else can I do. And big part of that is why we're here, because I want to make sure that if you have either already taken our courses or are about to take the courses, you also can see where else this leads you. And a lot of the conversation about vibe coding, especially in the tech circles, early on was, hey, this is great, and now we can all build apps, kind of like you said. But the next thing that I'm seeing is learners and new builders are getting a little overexcited, right? Because, hey, now I can build this. I can build anything. Yes, but, right? So the yes, but is
The
part of
pendulum
that.
seems to have swung a little too far the other way.
Yeah, right. And you get overconfident because you don't know what you don't know. And so you might run into some issues. And I've run into some issues myself where I thought, hey, now I can build all the apps that I'm paying for in a subscription. I can build them, using my vibe coding tools and Stack, and you quickly run into errors.
Absolutely.
What are some of the challenges that you're seeing in your journey and in your trainings that you recommend people be aware of as they build and publish their first or even their second app?
I think it's really important to have an idea of what you think you might do with your app over the long term.
Mhm.
And I want to be careful that I don't sound like the old ogre. No, you shouldn't use vibe coding. I love it, and you should use it. But you should be prepared on how many constraints you're going to put on it based on what the use is. So if you're only going to use vibe coding to organize recipes or projects for the house or that type of thing, don't worry about a lot of this stuff so much. That's great. And that's a fantastic use case. And don't let anybody tell you that that is a bad use case.
Right.
If you're going to be using vibe coding that works with any type of personal information, or if you're using it as part of your business and you think you might be using it for a long period of time, you need to worry much more about security, and you need to worry much more about scalability so that the next piece attaches to the piece you already built. And that's where the wheels tend to come off. You need to think about, if you're doing think of Legos. If you have building blocks, you need to make sure that base layer is really, really solid
Right.
before you start adding additional pieces.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great analogy, and I love how easy it is in these tools to get started and build something and have something visual. And you say, okay, make this a little, a little darker shade of blue, or add this button, or change this. And especially this part about the data and data privacy is so important. As I was building the course, I was thinking about, well, what kind of scenario can I choose where I ask learners to build something that they will actually use, that they put data in there, but where it doesn't expose their company data or confidential data at risk. So the idea I came up with was to create a wins journal, to say, hey, when you complete a project, right, when you do something that you're really, really proud of, where you got good feedback, you can log this in a nice list, and then you use AI at your liking, at a month, quarter, year-end summary, and say, summarize these wins over this period of time, so I can share them with my manager, so I can share them with a recruiter, so I can use that to prepare for the next career step in interview. And it's really this fine line, because you really wouldn't want to put your company's confidential data in there, especially if it's the first or second app that you build, because that point about securing it and making sure that only authorized people have access to it and so on is not to be underestimated.
No API keys in the code, guys.
Yes, right. Definitely one thing. Now, you talked about scaling, and tools like Lovable, for example, give you a daily number of credits. Right now, it's 5 credits that you get on the free tier. You also get a certain number of credits for AI usage, so you can connect to a Gemini or to an OpenAI model and others, which is just enough to get started building. But I think the part about scaling then also transfers to cost. Right? Is this
Absolutely.
something that you're planning on using more regularly? Is free tier still the best option if you have users that consume your credits, your AI credits, for example? Yeah.
And I think it's important that people realize that decisions they make early on can really become a foundation, or they can become ankle chains. And you need to be sure which one you're choosing as you make decisions. One of the recommendations I give to all my students is, what's your exit strategy? What happens if any of these platforms, Lovable included, shuts down tomorrow?
True.
What happens if you decide to merge with another company? What happens if you decide to sell your company and they say, nope, we're not going to be able to use your company because you've got all the software written in Lovable? So what are your options? And all I'm going to say is, you don't need to have 100 options, but you always need to have at least one. What's the off ramp in case something goes wrong? And so few people do that, and it concerns me. I think it's great to have lots of stuff in Vibecoding. I also always make sure that I have an undo button, so to speak.
Yeah. And part of it could be exporting it to a GitHub repository, or exporting the raw file so you can reconstruct it and rebuild it somewhere else as a backup plan. The other thing that you mentioned, though, it being the solid foundation or it becoming ankle chains, is something I've experienced too. Not necessarily in Lovable, but early on my journey. In Cloud Code, for example, I was building an app. I was building a clone of an app that I use for interactive presentations. I thought, hey, this is great. I'll deploy this to my web hosting because I don't need to set up anything new. And as I was trying to deploy it, I ran into issues. I put the issues back into Cloud, and Cloud said, well, oh, sorry, that's a different architecture than I thought you actually had and you needed. So we need to re-architect them. I go, okay, fine, go and re-architect it. And it used more credits. And 15, 20 minutes later, I had something that I could deploy, and said, well, now I want it to be more interactive and to like keep an open window and show you if there are any polls. Oh, that's a different architecture. Let me redo that again. So yes, right. You don't know what you don't know when you get started, especially if you're not a trained software developer. So it is very powerful, but very likely as you're going through this as a learner, as a first-time builder, you're likely to make these same experiences too. where this is good, though, is that as you make the experiences, you are very likely not going to repeat the same mistakes. So spend some more time in the very beginning thinking about what is it that I actually want to build, but also be cognizant of the fact that there might be unknown unknowns that you'll only discover as you go through the process, and that's fine.
There is a great cartoon that I saw years ago, which is a manager whose junior employee has just come into the office. And the manager looks at the output of the junior employee and puts his head like this, and he goes, "Oh, you did exactly what I asked you to." Because the manager hadn't thought through what the manager was going to, needed. And so you can have situations where Lovable will execute just what you wanted.
Yep.
There's a difference that I think we all need to understand between artificial intelligence and artificial thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And at first that seems, people go, what the heck are you talking about? There's a certain amount of thinking that needs to happen in any project. And the strategy and defining the needs and defining what you're really after. What are your objectives? How are you going to measure that? Mm-hmm. That's on you. That's not Lovable's job. Yes. Lovable's job is to help you get to that. But if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have constraints that you want to follow, you're in trouble. So think of Alice in Wonderland. When Alice first meets the Cheshire Cat, she says, which road should I take? And the Cheshire Cat says, well, where is it that you want to go? And Alice says, I'm not sure. Then the cat says, it doesn't matter. So
right, yes. So here we are. Exactly. Now, Scott, I know you're super active on LinkedIn. I know you post every day. I post every day too. So prepared a little slide. Where can people find you, and what can they learn about?
LinkedIn is always the place. So I publish a lot about AI and strategy. My specialty, I guess, if anything, is AI profitability. And I try and help organizations actually make some money out of all those Gen AI investments that they've created. And I'm happy to help if people have questions.
That's awesome. So scan the QR code, give us a follow, and learn more about how to make AI profitable and turn hype into outcome. So we also wanted to show you some of the courses that we've created. Like I said, mine recently came out, Lovable 101 from prompt to product. It's about 40 minutes long and walks you through the process of starting with an idea all the way to building, enhancing the app, and publishing it. There are a few others that have published over the last 2 years. But Scott, I know you have some amazing guided labs out there, one of them on Lovable, but also some of the others. Maybe a little bit about them too.
Absolutely. So guided labs are a little bit different. Guided labs are basically a hands-on, no video, get your sleeves rolled up and apply the skills from the beginning. It's mostly text-based, so it'll walk you through some of the basics of how to sign up with Lovable and get an initial project. And then by the end of a guided lab, you end up with an actual mini product that you can use on your own. So in Lovable's case, that's what you'll create.
So fantastic. So if you're looking for something that's self-paced and where you don't need to, scrub back and forth on the video or pause, the guided labs are a really great way to do that. I actually went through the one myself that you created and was really encouraged and inspired to see how well that works. If
Excellent.
Steps. Yeah. So we talked about data privacy. We talked about, inadvertently biting off a little more than you can chew because you don't even know how big that bite is when you take it. I think one of the other experiences that I made is it's super easy once you've built your first version or your first prototype, say, okay, now I'm going to add this bell and this whistle and this little thing and that little thing. And all of a sudden that thing gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you wonder, how am I going to manage this? And why is something now broken over here because I added something over there? Is it something you're seeing too?
I am. One of the things that I always chuckle about are the articles that come out that say that because of vibe coding, it's the end of the software engineer. There will be no more software engineers ever. AI is going to write everything. Well, that assumes that the only thing a software engineer does is understand syntax.
Mm-hmm.
And that is basically the smallest component. What you can do to help Lovable is just understand some fundamental basics of how software architecture works. I'm not talking about getting a computer science degree. I'm talking about understanding some of the basics of inputs and outputs and how you design things. And the great news is, in addition to Andreas's wonderful course, in addition to what I have out there, Lovable has fantastic resources on the website.
True.
If you go through their architecture and also their prompting guide, so 2 different sections, you can really get a better idea and just draw on a piece of paper. I want this box to do this. I want this box to do that. I want this box to do the other thing. Think of it like input, process, output, just some basics of how it's going to go. Do that first. And even Lovable recommends that you spend about 70% of your time in the planning side of the app and only 30% on actually creating the code for the app. Those are really good rules of thumb for any type of application development.
So
Lovable will help you.
So that means it's not just the part of developing, but understanding from a product management point of view, what are the requirements, what are the needs, what are the wants, what do users need, or what I even need as a user, and then help Lovable, like you said, help you, very succinctly put. Yes, so understanding your requirements, understanding your needs, and understanding your constraints, what not to put in there in a first version. So vibe coding tools like Lovable don't just interpret what you might mean or fill in the gaps where this can be clear articulated. So be very specific about what you want and what you don't want. Yeah.
You can also use a second LLM to test the code that you created from Lovable, just to give you perspective. And what that will do is 2 things. One, if the other LLM doesn't understand it at all, I would be shocked. It means there's probably something wrong with how you output the code. But if it has suggestions in terms of, oh, well, I would re-architect this, or oh, I would do that. I'm not saying you need to do that. I'm not even saying the second LLM is right, but it helps you think through the process and say, maybe I could go back and do that. It's like a second set of eyes, just like a code review if you're a software developer. Can add some perspective and help you build some skills.
Good point. In a similar direction, you might also ask, hey, can you do a security check, make sure that there are no known vulnerabilities or that the most common issues are fixed before this gets published? Or now that it's out there, are we still using the latest frameworks, the latest versions of these frameworks, and things like that to make sure that you keep up, that your application keeps up with what is out there, and that it is safe and secure.
Absolutely. What is your favorite thing about Lovable?
Good question. By the way, folks, this is not sponsored by Lovable. There's just two instructors.
What do you hate about Lovable?
Being excited about the product. So I was looking at different vibe coding tools before I created this course. And what I like about Lovable is that everything seems to be very well put together. If you're on the free tier, 5 credits a day, you can get pretty far. You can complete the course Lovable 101 in that day with your allowance, but everything is in one place. You don't need API keys. You don't need a lot of knowledge about the technical details and underneath. You don't need to sign up for any other service. This doesn't live somewhere else. It's all very much self-contained. And I really like this because I feel it makes it so much easier, especially if you're a first-time developer, first-time app builder, that you don't have to worry about all the technical stuff under the hood. Build the app, focus on what is the problem that I'm trying to solve, who am I solving it for, what is the benefit that they're getting. That's the most that you can already do, and the best that you can do, and then let the software handle the technology stack. That's what got me excited, because you can do a lot on
those are great points.
Free tier. Yes. Yeah. And by the way, right, the course is built in I know yours is built in the same way that anyone can take it. And I think if you restrict it to a to a paid tier, to a different product where you first need to sign up and pay a monthly fee, I feel that usually or raises the entry level. But this one anyone can take, and that was my big goal, because I believe we need to enable a lot more people on how can you do this, and how can you do this well, safely, securely, and most of all, deliver value to whoever your user is, whether it's yourself, whether it's your friends, your colleagues, or someone that you eventually plan on selling this to as a product or as a service.
Great points.
So yeah, so let's show this one more time. Again, if you'd love to learn more about the courses we have out there, take a look at those. You find them in the library. Also, give us a follow on LinkedIn so you can stay in touch with us and learn more about where where to find new courses that we're putting out there, because there's always something new.
Yes, there is.
So every week, every day, it feels like there's something new. And if it's not a new product, it's a new twist in the big AI story. So, but let's think about what should the next steps be that the learners should take. Say you've built your first app. What's next?
I think if you've built your first app, how do you feel about it? One of the things I suggest is you keep a log. And I created this. Andreas, you suggested keeping a log of your wins as you go through. I think that's a fantastic idea. My suggestion would be similar, and you can keep it in the same log, maybe in a second column, which is to say, what did I learn? What was fundamental that I got from this process? Because remember, you need to be learning as Lovable is going along. Keeping a prompt library so that what went wrong, and also what was the prompt that like crashed really horribly. A lot of us are like, oh, that was a bad idea. I'm never looking at that again. Big mistake. You want to figure out what did go wrong and what you can learn from that. Past that, for next steps, I would say, was this a good fit for what I was trying to do? And was the amount of time I spent building the app the right amount of time? And what I mean by that was, did it go a lot faster so I can pick up more projects like that?
Right.
Or that, looking back, I spent so many hours on that. I'm not really sure if that was the best investment of my time. And one final thing would be, when you're figuring out, I think my final last step would be prioritize what you're going to do in Lovable. Make sure that whatever you're going to devote your time to is worth it, because some projects don't need to be coded at all. Sometimes it's just easier to buy something that already exists, and sometimes it is really fantastic to use Lovable. So those would be my three.
Awesome, thank you. So many great points, and as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, yeah, yes, I've been there. Yes, I've seen that too. So those are not just
Andreas and I have the scars.
So those are not just nice recommendations. They're actually true. And as you go through the process, you'll likely see many parallels to what you're building and what you're experiencing too. The part that I think is important as well is that around risk and cost. When I started working with tools like that, I figured, well, I can replace this $20 subscription. I can replace this $50 subscription per month, right? And so, okay, maybe I can save $1,000 a year. And I'm only paying either nothing, in this case, if it's free tier, or on some other tools, $20 or $100. So I should get a lot more value. What I quickly found was that the $20 subscription for a product that you pay off the shelf is actually a pretty good deal, because somebody else is maintaining it. Somebody else is making sure it's current, it's secure, it's built into and integrated into many of these tools. So don't underestimate that you're paying somebody else for a good reason, for them to maintain this and to continue to innovate around this. And if anything goes wrong, they're on the hook. So there's no need to build a replacement for DocuSign. There are legal requirements. The U.S. e-signature act that I learned about after I had built my DocuSign clone. Making sure that, right? Oops, yes, making sure that the documents cannot be altered. So if you're the developer of this app and you're asking people to sign a contract with you on the app you've built, using a third party that's neutral, right? There's a trusted party, but if you, in theory, could go in and alter the contract afterwards, doesn't leave such a good feeling behind. So be cognizant of the fact too. Are others going to use this? Are they going to transact with me on this common platform that I've built? Do they have enough trust that this is neutral and is not going to be altered? Things like that all of a sudden play a lot more into this. And again, if you are planning on working with personal identifiable information and protected information and things like that, again, especially as a first-time or second-time builder, it might not be a bad idea working with something that's paid first and see and learn more about it. But I think the other part for me is learning about what to do next. 2 or 3 things. One is you can always use a different large language model or AI assistant, like Scott already said, to even write your prompt. Say, hey, this is what I want to build. Draft me a prompt that I can put into Lovable over here in your Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, what have you, and then paste it over in Lovable. Saves you a few credits. You get started more quickly. You can also then see how well did this work. Oh, I would not have thought of adding these details or leaving this out. So that can be a great help. And the other part is you can also ask, hey, now that I've built this, what else should I be considering to make this even better and to make this even more user-friendly? And what are some of the common features that apps like that typically have that mine doesn't? So a version 2, a version 3 gets even better. And then,
I think, right? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and the last point would be, what is the next problem that you're looking to solve? Because we're surrounded by problems, whether we see them or we don't. But typically, if you work in a business and you run through certain steps or processes on a regular basis, you know where the problems are, even if it's little points between teams or communication or something, or in your personal life. Looking for the next thing is usually a good idea too.
I think one of the points that you made is really excellent in terms of thinking of apps as organic little critters, not one and done. Most apps develop over time, regardless who's creating them, whether it's you or a large corporation. There doesn't ever seem to be a point at which you have to say, oh, I can't go back and make it better over time. Yeah. I forget which artist it was. I think it was Picasso who wrote, no artwork is ever finished. It's just abandoned. So
yes, right. Very good point. And in many ways, building your app and having an app in whatever state is a piece of art, whether you publish it, whether you abandon it, whether you come back and improve it. So very encouraging for sure. Awesome. So Scott, one last time, where do people find you if they want to connect with you?
You can obviously find me under LinkedIn Learning for the courses that I have there. But LinkedIn in general is a great place to reach out. And you can also find me on maven.com or at the University of Pennsylvania.
Fantastic. And feel free to connect with me as well. I post every day about how do you bring AI into your business, what's top of mind for leaders in business functions and in technology these days, as tech keeps evolving ever more quickly, it feels like. Right? That's the exciting part. So hope, folks, if you're in the audience, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you learned a little bit more about what to do next after you've taken your first steps in Lovable. If you haven't taken our courses yet, go check them out. If you have taken them, we have a little surprise for you that we share with you. Put in the comments Lovable, and we'll share a quick guide with you on what are the next things to consider as you're building your next Lovable projects and as you continue on your Vibecoding journey. Scott, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, always great to talk to you and see and hear what you're seeing in this space. Fantastic.
Take care.
Folks, thank you so much. See you for another Office Hours LinkedIn Learning. Bye-bye.